This is the 6th year that Peter and I have taught this course together. It's my favourite course in terms of how you can bringing together the strengths and interests that we have gathered from 2 or 3 years study at university. So as you go through explaining the course today and explaining the assessment, you'll see there's a fair focus on peer learning in this course, and we'll explain more about that. But it's a deliberate model to the kind of situations you'll find yourself in the workplace when you're working in environment-related areas. And the interesting thing about this course is that you're actually part of quite a large community of environmental policy and planning students. If you go to my webpage, and there's a link in the handouts, there's a list there of 160 former students who've done this course and the type of work they're doing. And on average each year, about half of the people doing this course will find themselves working in environmental policy related areas. And as you also see as the course progresses, Peter and I will bring some of those former students into the course, both physically but also electronically, in terms of having some contribution via the webpage. So what we'd like to do today is to do mainly just introduce you to the course, and in the second hour we'll have Neil Gunningham, who's an expert on business regulations, sustainability, to talk about that. So the main things we want to do is explain the assessment and introduce ourselves. But before doing that, I'd like to make a special welcome of the international graduate students doing this course. But I'm privileged this year to have a strong cohort of graduate students, both from Australia and overseas, and many of the graduate students and some of the undergraduates indeed are international students. And again, that brings the dynamic to this class, which I think is wonderful in terms of the learning environment. The most stunning tutorial that we've been into was in this course a couple of years ago, where we had a Bhutanese forester, East Timorese fellow who had been involved in the post-war reconstruction there, and a Japanese environmentalist. And the tutorial topic was one you'll have the option of choosing issues in public participation in environmental policy and planning. It's had an amazing breadth of knowledge of the respective three cultures, and I brought it to the classroom. Actually, so I felt like physically going around the classroom and sort of shaking the Australian students and saying, pay attention, you're not going to get this type of opportunity every day of the week. Big learning in this case from three people who actually work professionally in those areas. The course, as Peter and I will explain, is about the big issue facing the planet, and I'm sure you're all already very conscious of the importance of environmental policy and planning. As the course progresses, we'll be talking a lot about practical policies and the gulf often between what's written on paper and what can actually be implemented. So when we have time, we come back. There's no good policies at all, that's what I'm telling you. We come back and compare the good policies with the bad policies. Often it's things that can actually be implementable. Often people talk about something that looked really good on paper, but it wasn't put into practice. That gulf between theory and practice is something that we're exploring a lot in the course. And finally, just in terms of preliminary comments, that environmental policy and planning is a relatively new area in terms of academic courses. I don't think there are many when we first started teaching this being offered in Australia, that's what we do now. But we feel quite strongly there's a need for some new methods in teaching it. And as the course develops, you'll see some examples of that, particularly how we structure the tutorials. But also, as you've already seen, we want to make this classroom as interactive as feasible. The material that we'll go through today is on the internet already. Each lecture will give some handouts. There's been some photocopy problems, but there'll be 20 more handouts there soon for latecomers. So you'll have very detailed notes, so you don't need to sit here writing furiously during the whole class. You can really focus up on what we're saying. The lectures are being recorded, hopefully, and will go up on the WebCT page. And also, we're going to have some video streaming this year as well, as part of an alliance that ANU is part of with the International Alliance of Research Universities, and I'll say more about that later as well. So what we're trying to do today is briefly complete the small group exercise. Peter and I will introduce ourselves. We'll both say something about our views about teaching and learning, and hopefully that will segue into explaining why we've set up the assessment, the way of doing it. And then if we have time, we might just have time to say a few brief words before the mid-break about our views about the courses of that. So I've already introduced myself and Peter. On the webpage there's an email address for both of us. I've got my office hours up on the webpage. I can't remember them off the top of my head, but I'll be sitting there for those 3 hours a week if anyone wants to drop in and discuss the course. And also, if you send me an email, I can usually arrange to see you outside those times. So many issues also can sort out through email. we're lucky to have 4 really enthusiastic tutors in the course. Felicity has been involved in the course for over 10 years now, and will be running most of the super tutorials, which I'll say more about in a minute. Paula did the course 2 years ago and tutored last year. Elizabeth did the course last year, and Sarah was close to with me on Indigenous land management. Simon, show of hands, who here has not successfully got into a tutorial? Okay, great. So come and see me at half time and we'll work that out. But as the rest of you realise, the tutorials have been available to choose from LibCT for a week. If you have any problems about the course, I'm sure Peter would be happy to answer, but it's probably best to direct him to me in the first place because Peter's very busy, and I'll try to deal with it, but I'll refer things I can't answer to issues with Peter. Is that right?
Sure. Yes, sure.
So the course is going to be very eclectic in the range of environmental policy we look at, and it can vary from the very pragmatic to the highly institutional, vary across those different dimensions. There's a focus in some tutorials on environmental education, which is obviously part of environmental policy. We'll have some people talking about more structural issues, so Anil's quite a good example of that after the break. Say a few things about myself and how I came to be here. I was actually an undergraduate at ANU, and my interest there was in geomorphology and archaeology. So I'm a physical geographer firstly, and also working as an archaeologist. That led to me getting a job in the Northern Territory Museum, and those who have done the first year with me would have heard some of the work I did there working with Indigenous people on land management issues. That led to a PhD in human geography at the University of Adelaide. Which in turn got me a job with the National Museum in Canberra in its early days before it actually had a building, and there I was involved in developing exhibitions with an environmental theme. So I put together a major travel exhibition in the Murray Basin. The consultation process of that, developing that museum was a very formative experience in my sort of professional life. I spent 2 years driving around the Murray Basin talking to local communities about what they would like to see in the National Museum. And you'll see in some of the lectures I give a focus on issues around public participation and the benefits of that. So again, that's a pretty strong theme in the course. And finally, that got me back to the ANU. I was asked to teach this course. That was what I was employed to do. And since I've been here, I've sort of returned in many ways to my interest in looking at Indigenous issues. So I've sort of categorised my research interest as these 3 areas. And each of them, as you see, is in some way intersect towards the end. So I've been quite active in terms of education issues at the ANU, trying to make teaching methods more effective across the whole university. And I have some position in the College of Science doing that. In terms of my research, I mentioned that 4-year experience working for the National Museum, and that also led me to a real interest in land care as an exemplar of some of the good things, but also some of the bad things about community participation and resource management. I've also done some work, mainly as a result of students in this class who've gone on to become PhD students and assisting their research in Vietnam and the Philippines. In terms of that middle link of an interest in environmental justice and Indigenous issues, I worked on a major book 5 years ago called Working on Country, published by Oxford University Press, talking about all the ways in which Indigenous people in Australia are involved in land management. And I've been doing some research on joint management issues, and again, I'm coming to some of the lectures about how national parks in Australia are being run. And again, all those different interests, I think, focus on work I've been doing, for example, continuing with the annual people in Northern Australia, looking at how they can manage their country being an Aboriginal term for that landscape out there, but also all the cultural interactions between people and the environment. I'm a geographer, and those who've done first year would have heard this definition about geography, about who gets what, where, and when. And sociology and those degrees, as I said in that first year course, is very, very similar in some ways. It's an inherently political discipline. Environmental policy and planning is inherently political. I remember the first time I ever taught this course, somebody came up to me after the second or third lecture and said they wanted to know what the right answer was, and I told them they were going to run a course in the sense that there aren't usually